Impulse's second win of the series.
Thank you, Riv. And I mean, they're obviously already speculating as to what's going to happen in the next game because we pull out that Cassidy. I know Zyrene is a huge fan of the Cassidy.
He talks about it a fair bit.
Has a lot of power behind it, and it was illustrated here. We saw what an early gank from Rush did there in the mid lane, get him just that little bit ahead and let him roll.
I think that was one of the critical things as well, was Rush's Gragas kind of making a return to this game. It had been banned out by Impulse in the past, and getting the flash and a kill on a Phoenix destroyed that lane for him entirely. It meant Xiao got to free farm, and then once that happened, since Xiao was ahead, the things that didn't happen in game 2 when he was behind on Yasuo, when they had those chaotic fights in the jungle, was generally when Team Impulse was able to come out with some really big Team Impulse-like fights. They turn competitive games into things that look like solo queue because they get big goal leads and they just fight all the time.
Yeah, you hit on that perfectly. I mean, Impulse is all about chaos, a somewhat organized chaos for them. For the other team, they're clueless. They don't know what to do, and they're looking for these small skirmishes. So I'm going to use that to get into our first replay because we're going to go into the top side of the map, and this is an example of Impulse finding multiple 2v1s and 2v2s all in the same area of the map. It doesn't look like a 5v5 team fight.
And the game was actually pretty close at this point. There were several kills on Quas's Hecarim. So let's get into this section right now. This is probably the final fight.
This is actually the final fight, so this might be backwards here.
It's fine. This is an example, we're going to use this anyway, of the late game team fight, where if this game had been closer and not so heavily snowballed, Team Liquid would have been okay. Look at the zoning ultimate from the Azir. Gets down a lot of damage while Quas is able to zoom in for a giant ultimate. But Piglet had been instantly killed because Xiao does too much burst. And then the chase over, Phoenix lived for a really long time. Imagine if he was actually dealing meaningful damage during these fights as opposed to little baby stabs he was getting out of his soldiers there. And it could have been a substantially different game. That was a team fight with a 15,000 gold differential by the end of the game.
Well, and that's when we talk about this mid lane matchup being so pivotal, and it's becoming more evident that these two players here are going to be where the series might hinge, in that Azir and Kassadin, both very fantastic late-game champions. As you mentioned, if the gold difference had been in the other fashion, with that zoning ultimate from Azir, he was untouchable from that side of his wall for about 15 seconds, free hitting.
It seemed like a long time, but that's the thing with Xiao's Kassadin, is he can do a little baby hop over that. It's a small jump now from Kassadin, but it comes out so frequently. We've seen some Kassadins actually in other regions do Athenes and Roa, which is like a crazy combination because if you get a kill as well as smacking someone with your W, it's 43% of your max mana back.
Which is absurd.
Which is absurd, but Xiao didn't even need that because he was winning the fights before he hit max Riftwalk stacks. Totally viable thing. We've seen 3 different Kassadin builds actually. It's the Roa Zanyas, the Roa Luden's which we saw from Inox in the promotion tournament, and then the Roa Athenes. He's actually really picking up steam in this game where we're having a lot of team fights, but a lot of long, drawn-out team fights with fairly few priority targets.
Exactly.
Right?
When you look at
Heavy
these
tanks,
hyper-carry ADs.
Hyper-carry ADs and fewer tanks. So the Kassadin here in this game was able to single out the Azir and the Vayne, who would have been great picks, assuming a much tankier team without the assassination threat. It's kind of the meta shifting in one direction and then shifting back with that last pick from Kassadin.
All right, well, I'm not entirely certain whether or not we have the other replay. If we do, hopefully we'll pull it up on your screen right now. If not, we'll continue talking about other things. We do have it. Here it comes. This is the one we intended to look at first. We were going to look at both. So this is the illustration of the skirmish and chaos that the Impulse lives for when they play these games.
Yeah, and it's also the speed at which they find these fights. One thing we won't see in this replay because we're in team fight mode is the Azir ultimate came back the second after he died, which he needed for peel. So you can see this right at the start. Both top laners are actually TPing in from the minimap, and it's all about Phoenix getting rushed into a poor decision right there. He was trying to run over, Rush destroyed him with the tandem of Xiao, but it's just that mobility that Team Impulse has. When they get ahead, they are extremely confident of forcing everybody jumps the walls, nowhere is safe, and this was the big moment where you kind of thought the game was over, even though both top laners could TP in by the time Quas got there, because Impulse plays so quickly, everybody was dead. And that was kind of a perfect illustration of what Azir couldn't have happened to him during that game, and Phoenix got abused.
And the important thing to note is that that fight originated in the top lane. The aggression started in the top lane. That's why the top laners
That's why everyone was rotating up there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Impulse is more than happy to divert from their original plan of attack. I feel like when we talk about split-second decision-making and ability to pivot within game, that is somewhere that their somewhat solo queue mentality actually helps them because they're more willing to fall into situations and go with the flow of the game as opposed to being stubborn to what the team comp is supposed to do on the side of Team Liquid.
One of the best teams in the LCS for that when they have a lead and when they have a team composition that fits them. Freak was mentioning in one of the earlier casts that when they actually fall behind, their mid-game decision-making doesn't work out because they have 17 different things and different plays they could use, assuming a lead. But as soon as that lead isn't there, those 17 different things result in 0 good plays. So that early gank by Rush and the early jungle pressure is so critical in these games for Team Impulse.
Yeah, I was having a conversation a little bit earlier about how this series might play out. And for me, it felt as though when you look at these two teams in a vacuum, Liquid has more opportunities to win in terms of avenues that they could win through.
Right.
With Impulse, it's we have to play strong early champions, laning champions, get ahead, and then use that to in an aggressive fashion to force team fights. They can still team fight, but they have to be ahead to do it. Liquid has more options to stall out the game because ultimately they believe and think and have shown that they are the better team fight team in the late game. So for them, finding ways to stall out the game, there are more of those than there are to finitely close out a game.
Yeah, the most interesting thing about this, though, is now we're entering the third game with picks and bans on the same side. And they were talking on the caster desk right before we shot into this one, how do they deal with Xiao? Because as long as he doesn't pick himself Yasuo, he has been dominant in this series. And they get the last pick in the last game.
And we were questioning at the beginning of the day what his champion pool looked like. Well, now he's brought out Kassadin. He's shown his Orianna. We know Karthus is there as well as Vladimir. It doesn't look like there's going to be an easy answer in terms of saying, well, let's just ban these 3. Put him on Yasuo. He's shown us that he has the expanded pool to help out there. So I will as well be curious to see what Liquid can do going into this next game. Team Impulse are just 1 game away from claiming that 3rd place and 20 extra championship points. Meet us back here in 3.5 to see if they can do it in Game 4 against Team Liquid. Don't go anywhere.
Gotta make.
I'm so. Whoa. Gremlin. Wait. They just.
Dominate.
Okay, yeah.
And he flies right for Dominate, tries to take a bite out of the hindsight. The red side. The rocket comes through actually for Apollo to clean that up, and they may be able to continue this fight. Xiao with another rip forward could end another champion's life.
Finally, Impact rejoins the battle. Phoenix gonna get up in the back line. Rush taking up a lot of pain though as Xiao gets in on a Dominate.
Impact into the fight, gets bounced back by Emperor's Divide. Nobody chases on the Captain Boots follow-up there, but they still take down Dominate.
Impulse are going to be winning Game 3 here.